That resonates a lot. I think a lot of people think they're getting hired to like be a musician by restaurants, and that may be true sometimes, but I think also it's a little bit healthier to look at yourself as like hired entertainment. I kind of have this thought like you can play, once a month at the same bar and be perfect, and then a bar manager or booking agent gets changed out and you get dropped and you never hear from them again. And it's like
you just lost that contact all of a sudden, and it had nothing to do with what you did. It's just how the business works sometimes.
All right, so we are here with a popular music group of Columbia, South Carolina, Sam and Illia. Is it Sam and Illia duo, or is it just the Sam and Illia band?
Both.
Yeah, it's either Sam and Illia if we're just the duo, or it's the Sam and Illia band when we have other members.
Yep, and then when one of us has to sub out a gig, it's Sam or Illia. Sam or Illia.
Which we have done.
We have done that a couple times.
Nice.
Okay, that actually brings us to the first question of like, what is Sam and Illia?
So we started out as a duo. Our first ever gig was at Steel Hands Brewing, which is a crazy gig to get as a first gig, because that's like definitely one of the great spots to play in town.
Yeah.
We had like a connection, so we were able to get that booked. We went from having never done an acoustic duo gig to
4 hours.
a 4-hour
Really?
acoustic duo gig.
Yeah.
And you guys had to just like call tunes because you guys hadn't played.
We
put like 30 together. Or was it more than that?
It was more than that. I think we had like 40 or 50 songs.
Yeah,
ready to go.
that we were like, let's just learn all of these.
Yeah.
And it's not like we had to memorize them, so that's,
But then after that, it kind of worked, and Steel Hands really liked it, so they kept booking us, and
started getting booked at Gardener's Outpost.
A couple different restaurants around town.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then eventually we kind of wanted to like scale it up to like a full band thing, because that's just a lot more fun, and I like playing electric guitar.
But then the first band thing that we did was a 4-piece of you on bass, because you were playing bass before you were playing guitar. And then we had a drummer, and then we had our friend Zach on guitar. And then I was just singing.
Yep. And it just kind of morphed over time, and eventually...
Because you were like, I want to play electric guitar. So we changed it up after that.
And you got a lot more hours on bass, so eventually we kind of... we got to the point where, we'll do lots of trio stuff where Illia plays bass. Like, we do that at halls a couple times a month. But then really the only time at this point we hire bassists is like when we want you to be able to kind of run around and with a wireless handheld mic and just kind of go crazy.
Let me off the leash.
Yeah, like weddings or breakers or anywhere where like the crowd's like really into it.
Yeah.
What's like the ratio between background gigs and like you're the act?
There's definitely more background gigs than there are center of attention gigs.
Okay.
But it can be nice when you do a couple of like in-your-face gigs in a row. It can be nice to then switch and do a background one, and it's like, okay, I don't have to be like looked at really hard for these 3 hours.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You don't feel like you're scrutinizing what you're doing as much.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
It can also, though, on the flip side of that, it can also feel like, we had all these great gigs where people were giving us all this attention, and now like no one is paying attention at all. Right now we're We try not to feel really dramatic about it, but sometimes it's tough.
Yeah, we definitely get that. So like you said earlier, when you first started, you had like a set of 50 songs that you were practicing. So did you find when you were getting together at first that you had similar like inspirations, or was it harder to pick the songs that you were going to play, or like what's the process between like picking the covers?
Sure. Yeah. I think the trick was just to kind of find the overlap.
Yeah.
Because you and I definitely had pretty varied tastes. Like I was definitely like more into the like sort of classic rock stuff, and also like more into like the Motown thing. And then you were more into like the modern R&B stuff.
Yeah. But we both like that acoustic sad girl.
It's true. Phoebe Bridgers,
Yeah.
Chloe Moriando.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we did used to cover her in the beginning.
So
I missed that.
It was more just like kind of finding the overlap, and then finding songs that like I liked that you were down to play and enjoyed, and the songs that you liked that I was down to play and enjoyed. And then also like the more we did that, the more it became like, okay, what songs do we know work in certain like venues? So like right now, if you just look at our set list, we have like 180 songs maybe.
Yeah.
ready to
Super
go.
impressive.
But like realistically, we only have like 50 or 60 that work at breakers, and we only have like 50 or 60 that work at halls, and pretty much every venue's like that. So
we have played around before and done like a jazzy cover of like a rock song, and we regret it immediately. We're like, this feels awful. We should have done this.
Yeah.
How did you carve your specific niche into Columbia that's made like a lasting impact?
Like we were very available. And we were pretty much willing to take anything at the beginning.
Yep. for a while.
And like we
Yeah.
did some weird gigs
Yep.
that they were pretty out there,
Done some
but it
weird
put
gigs.
us in front of people.
Definitely.
We focused a lot in the beginning, and we still do now, on like recording demos. Because if people can see you online, then they can know what you sound like to some extent, and then
Right.
Definitely.
be more interested in hiring you.
I think also, as far as like you said, like carving out a place in the Columbia music scene, I think it was pretty easy to recognize early on that like there's kind of like I mean it's not unexpected, but there's kind of like these divided little niches of music in Columbia. Like there's an original like indie rock scene, and there's like a metal scene, and there's like a jazz scene, and there's like a R&B scene. And I think at least my strategy early on was like try to make connections in a lot of different scenes and like bridge different groups of people. So like at the Jam, for example, like, you know, we try to bring out like original artists that want to play their own songs, as well as bring out people that like, you know, just want to play like Hey Joe by Jimi Hendrix.
Right.
Yeah.
And play like, or even like play like Best Part by Daniel Caesar, or like all these
We
different
had a
genres.
lot of variety at this most recent Monday, which
Yeah.
was really cool.
That is a very beautiful thing, that you want to create such community between every niche or like difference, so to speak. But yeah, the Jam.
Yeah, how did you start the Jam? What was the idea behind that? Like how did that happen?
Can I tell the story?
Yes, go for it.
Okay, so it's got some lore, right?
Okay.
So there's some lore. So
Lore.
there used to be a place on Main Street called The Venue.
It's still there, I think.
It might have gotten rebranded. I feel like I heard that it got
That'd be
rebranded.
shocking.
Yeah, won't go too much deeper about that.
Sorry.
At any rate, so there was a place called The Venue, and we played there every Thursday as an acoustic duo, which we were really excited to get that gig when we first got it. Like, you know, get a local residency gig that pays pretty well. It's like, that's a big achievement for sure. And honestly, it was mostly like pretty empty on Thursdays. And so eventually a different artist wanted to do their concert series on Thursdays instead of Sundays. And so we got kind of booted to every Monday night. And we kind of looked at each other and we were like, okay, well, if there's not that many people here on Thursday nights, there definitely won't be people here on Mondays. And so we kind of thought about it, and we wanted to do something a little bit, you know, creative and different. And so we originally started as like an open mic, which back then it was like you could show up with your own backing tracks, or you could do comedy, or, you know, you could do whatever you want.
Yeah. And also, it would sometimes really toe that line of like karaoke, which
Yeah.
was starting to get frustrating for us.
We eventually banned that, unfortunately.
Yeah,
which
we were
kinda
like-
probably makes us look like the bad guys on some level. But so that kind of progressed, and we eventually kind of turned it more into like an open jam, an open mic, which was really tricky because like we didn't really have the budget to pay a house drummer all that much, and so no one was making that much money, and we also had to like be the backing band and also host and also run sound for it. But we kept that going for a while, just kind of because we thought it was a good thing for the community. But eventually they changed their hours, so they were closed Monday through Wednesday, and so we got like that. We were
Just
kind of
completely
like,
cut.
okay, this is gone, this is dead, this is over.
I felt worse about it and was willing to just like kind of sit and
Yeah.
take a break, but you were like, no, I'm finding another venue.
But I was like, there's a couple other places around town that this could work at, and so we talked to Tin Roof as well as New Brooklyn, and Carlin at New Brooklyn he ended up being really open to it because they used to do an open mic way back in the day, and so it just kind of went from there. Like we started doing it at New Brooklyn Tavern. Eventually we kind of had like a no solo or duo acts rule.
Yeah.
Which at this point there's like a separate event happening downstairs at like our jam where there's like solos and duos
It's
can
all
play.
solid, yeah.
with our friend
versus-
Chris Reed.
Yeah. Upstairs we have like the house band and a full back line, so either like full bands can show up and play, or we can we do like the open jam thing with the house band and that kind of type deal. And that's kind of where it's at right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
That is really cool, and I feel like it's really very important to have local spaces that garner creativity
Sure.
Yeah.
rather than just, you know, typical open mics. Like you said, it just becomes karaoke very quickly.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people who are creatives don't have those spaces, so I think it's a really awesome thing that you guys started something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know what I also like about it, and as somebody who's coming from the jazz world, you know, a lot of our jam sessions can kind of be cutty, where it's like, you know, if you're not like the best bebop player, then it's
Yeah.
like people look at you sideways.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
you guys kind of have a very open environment where, you know, anybody can kind of come up on stage and, you know,
Yeah.
show who they are.
Yeah, that's very intentional, to be honest. I kind of had a thought, and I'm not in any way trying to like, you know, throw shade or anything at anyone that hosts the open jams, but I kind of had this thought of like, man, I play guitar as a full-time job,
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I couldn't hang at a jazz jam. And I had that thought, I was like,
Yeah.
if I feel that way, I bet a lot of other people that could possibly go to a jam would also feel that way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when we were like, we need an open jam that like you can just show up and just strum 4 open chords on acoustic guitar, and
Yeah.
still play with the house band and have a good time. It's easy to forget as like kind of experienced like musicians.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, you get on stage 4 times a week. It's like whatever. But it's like you think back to the first time you got on stage and you're like, man, I
That's
was
a big deal.
scared as
Yeah.
you know what.
Still am.
Yeah, well, yeah, a lot of people still are. Like,
Yeah.
like if you host an open jam where new musicians are coming out and they're playing and performing in front of people,
Mm-hmm.
like you got to be as supportive and positive as possible because they're already way more scared than
Yeah.
they're letting on.
You can tell when they get on stage, like they're like
Yeah, they're tense and
they
nervous.
can't like make eye contact, like they're like, you know.
Yeah.
And it's I'm glad we provide
Mm-hmm.
that space where they can feel comfortable to get up on stage and try something. We've said this with other like interviews before, but like everyone needs a space to like be bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And like
Yeah.
no matter what your skill level is, like even it like for us, for example, like we don't have originals right now, but like if we did, like I wouldn't want to just like book a show and play them immediately. Like I would want
Right.
to test the waters first.
Right.
I don't want to
Totally.
just
Yeah.
you know.
And I feel
ease
like
in.
so I always say that the most talented people in this world, you never even see them on a stage, or you never will know their name, just
Sure.
because a lot of them are too afraid to get out there.
Totally.
It's just that initial fear of like, yo, I'm gonna be bad and I don't want to do this. Da 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 da.
Everyone's
So-
bad at some point.
Exactly. You have to start bad and then work your way up. But
Totally.
I feel like so many people, like you said, are very closed-minded and judgmental. And just
Yeah.
because they're good now, they forget where they came from.
Yeah.
And so I think it's
Yeah.
really cool, just the humble aspect of the entire jam that you guys have
I appreciate
created.
that.
So like, if you had to start over, right, and you had to do everything again, like, what would you change?
Or what would you do differently?
Yeah.
That's a great question.
I think I would try to read the room better.
Yeah.
Because that was something in the beginning, like we would kind of just perform every room the same way. And I don't necessarily regret doing that, especially because there were some moments where there was just a lot of emotion that needed to get out. But I think now I would try to, again, read the room and like maybe channel those emotions into a different setting.
Yeah, that resonates a lot. I think a lot of people think they're getting hired to like be a musician by restaurants, and that may be true sometimes, but I think also it's a little bit healthier to look at yourself as like hired entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's like the more you can get into the mindset of like serving the bar and serving the restaurant that is hiring you and like helping their business and being like a contracted business to help their business, like that's definitely the healthiest mentality, and that's when you can like kind of not worry so much about like, you know, ego and like
Yeah.
like your this sort of like pure artistic integrity of your music, because it's just like that's just not really like the place for it a lot of times.
And to clarify, that's like very specifically to like cover artists. If you're gonna
Yeah.
like get
Yeah, oh,
hired
yeah,
for a
yeah,
3-hour
yeah,
cover
totally.
gig at a it's like it's not really about you.
Yeah. But if you're playing, I mean, obviously, like if you're playing your own original music at a show, like do whatever you want.
yeah.
Like
That's
obviously,
your space.
Yeah, that would. Yeah, thank you for qualifying.
Yeah. Like Columbia
Yeah.
is
Yeah, that's
bigger
what, yeah.
than people give it credit for.
Right.
But it's also like small enough that like at least like in the music scene, it's like we'll
Yeah.
meet people all the time that we've never met, but it's like, okay, we've heard their names, they've heard our names. Like
Yeah.
we all are kind of aware of each other.
Like you can play, you know, once a month at the same bar and be perfect, and then you know, a bar manager or booking agent gets changed out and you get dropped and you never hear from them
Yes.
again. And it's like you
Because
can't.
you just lost that contact all of a sudden,
Yeah.
and it had nothing to do with what you did. It's just
Yeah.
how the business works sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like we've done that. There's a restaurant in Charlotte where we like showed up on time and played and like
We were
did a
there
good
like
job.
multiple times a month. Like
The bar staff said we were like their favorite band that played there.
Yeah.
And then like a few months down the line, like the corporate says, hey, we need to slash our entertainment budget. And they're like, okay. I
and they
guess
got
we're
a new
getting-
booking agent.
either getting paid less or we're just not playing this gig anymore. So it's
Yeah.
like it's tough, man. It's a really difficult industry for sure.
Yeah.
But,
As far as sound goes, I think people are really willing to hear your take on a cover.
Yeah.
There are going to be some people that are going to be kind of uppity about it,
Mm-hmm.
but like we've really stuck to our guns with just like, if you wanted to hear the music from the band, just put on Spotify. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like
Right.
you hired a cover band for a reason,
yep.
Exactly.
and I'm gonna do whatever I'm gonna do vocally or otherwise to the song.
Totally.
You're gonna do whatever you're gonna do.
Yeah.
We change up like the vibes of songs a lot, just especially if it's a song that we play all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like Valerie, we've had like 5 different versions of Valerie just because it's like we've been playing it since the beginning, and we will get tired of it. So we need to make it more fun for us.
Yeah. Now we have like this whole solo section that
Oh my gosh.
like modulates 3 times.
And
it's
again,
just,
we've written it, or like kind of re-harmonized it and everything like so many times.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think people are more receptive sometimes than you might assume to
Right.
like hearing you do something weird to a song.
Yeah.
I love that moment of like when you see people figure out what you're playing. Like if you take it so far away from the original, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, this is Where Is My Mind by the Pixies, but
Yeah.
we're doing it in like a jazz E. I'm like, you actually play jazz,
Yeah,
so I
oh.
don't want to call anything we do jazz.
Yes.
Because we're not jazz musicians.
Yeah.
But
You're like, oh my God,
Like-
where's my mind? But make it ska.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Stuff like that.
I would listen to that. That sounds really interesting.
honestly, yeah, we could do
Yeah.
it.
We can make that work. Maybe at a jam at some point. We
Yeah.
We gotta get a trombone player.
I was about to say, can we get some more horns on
trumpet, yeah.
the...
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like that's really just an interesting talent that a lot of people don't give credit to, is the ability to reshape things that already are pre-existing, because at that point you're making it your own song. You're making it something that's a totally different entity, and you're just embodying what it was.
Totally.
Yeah.
So since you do have such a proficiency in so many genres and you have such a great capability at rewriting things, do you see yourselves making original music in the near future?
Definitely.
Definitely.
And like in a certain sense, in the near future of like 4 hours after we leave this interview.
Yeah. We're going to a session after this.
But we definitely we want Sam and Illia to move definitely more in the direction of like an original band of some kind.
Yeah.
Some fusion of all of the genres we play.
Yeah. Like we won't. It's possible we'll never like abandon fully like the cover band thing, especially because we've started doing like wedding music as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even like big original bands you might be aware of like might also be doing wedding band stuff on the side or whatever. But I think there's just different circles we kind of want to get involved in, and we've had some people offer us different opportunities that we just can't take because we don't have originals yet.
Definitely.
I like it's not all like business oriented, but there is like something to be said about like the strategic move of writing music.
Right.
And I can sometimes get really hung up on the like emotions I'm trying to get out in original music. So I'm trying, honestly, I'm trying to detach myself just a little bit at first so I don't get so hung up and I don't like
definitely
just white knuckle hold on to these songs like they're not perfect yet. I can't do them.
Yeah. There was somebody we had on our podcast named Kat Galan.
Yeah.
Who's just freaking incredibly talented.
She is.
But she wrote the song with her project called, I think it's just Galan. There might be some other pronunciation.
It's
But
like
that's
her and her brother, right?
yeah, her and brother and some other musicians. But she wrote the song she put out a song called Parachute. And I listened, it's just like, it's amazingly like well produced and it's just a gorgeous song.
And you'd been like speculating about the
and
lyrics.
I was like, what is this talking about? Like, like I have all these like, I had all these ideas in my head of like what this could be talking about.
So you finally got to ask her.
And I asked her on the interview, I was like, I gotta know, it's like one of my favorite songs I've heard from any local Columbia artists. Like, what is the song about? And she was like, it's literally just like an anthropomorphized parachute. Like, I think did I use the word?
Yeah.
It's just like,
from the perspective of a parachute,
like
literally.
This like cartoonish vision of like a parachute, like
That's
with a
crazy.
face that's like, I'm catching you on your way down. So, like really, that's what. Anyways.
And it's like one of the most profound songs I've
Yeah,
ever heard.
yeah.
Like,
Anyways.
it's beautiful.
So.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. I think we're almost out of questions, right?
Yeah, we just have one more. I think we've decided to end our interview segments with hot takes with Cam and Kerr. So
I love that.
So, would you like to present our hot take for the
Hot take of the day. Who is the best musician of all time?
or band?
I
Or
read
band.
that question and I was like, how am I even supposed to answer this? I feel like you're more qualified to answer this in a different way.
There is a correct answer, by the way.
Oh,
Or-
man. I'm
or
sure
you
you-
Or you could change it to your favorite.
No. That's a different question.
I was going to say, that is a different
That's a
question.
good question. Best
You go
musician-
first.
I don't feel like I'm educated or have listened to enough music to have an actual opinion on this.
That's how I feel.
I'll say I'm gonna say like the best musician that I'm familiar with. I mean, I really like Herbie Hancock. He's great.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good
That
answer.
That is a good one.
The
Right.
most consistent answer for me is always Paramore, but
Okay.
Mm.
Haley Williams.
oh God, I love her
Yeah.
so much. What is your correct answer? You say there's a correct answer.
It's got to be Stevie Wonder.
Oh.
Yeah,
Say
there
that,
is.
dude. I love Stevie Wonder. I should have said that.
There's definitely some strong evidence for it being Stevie Wonder, and
Yeah.
I could agree with that answer. I definitely could. Stevie has like just gone so far beyond his like niche, you know, and
Yeah.
is like he's just like. Unfortunately, the word is penetrated into every into like every
could've
genre.
found a word.
That was the only
You
word.
could have also just not brought attention to the horn.
Yeah, it made it worse than you called it.
I'm so sorry.
How about infiltrated?
Infiltrated.
Infiltrated sounds like
Let's cut out the
sinister.
part where I said the other word. He's really infiltrated into every like genre and every like everyone knows who Stevie Wonder is and everyone's covered his music and
Yeah.
he's just I could definitely agree with Stevie Wonder
Yeah.
and I'm not upset about that answer at all.
Well, we're almost at the 30-minute mark, so I think I'm gonna call it there and say thank you guys for coming on.
Yeah, thank you guys so
having
much.
us.
Yeah,
Of
this is
course.
awesome. Like, great learning experience. Great hearing from you guys and hearing your guys'
Yeah,
stories. So.
and we can't wait to see where your careers take y'all. And
Was-
we are fans, and we can't wait to see it.
Appreciate
How
that.
can people find you?
Yeah, how can people find you?
At Sam and Illia on
SAM
Instagram,
and ILLIA.
Instagram, Facebook. Don't look at our Twitter. We don't have
It's,
that
yeah, we don't really do anything there. We do have a TikTok that we are posting
we are
on now.
posting that now on
Yep.
at Sam and Illia. SamandIllia.com as well.
Mm-hmm.
We do parties, weddings, play restaurants and venues and bars, and
Mm-hmm.
duo all the way up to 5-piece band. Yeah.
Eventually, our podcast will come back. So
Eventually,
follow our
the
platforms,
jam-
and eventually we're gonna bring our podcast
Yeah.
back.
If you're
Yeah,
local to
absolutely.
Columbia or willing to drive, we have an open jam every single Monday night
Mm-hmm.
at New Brooklyn Tavern.
Doors at
5
7,
points.
starts at 8.
Yep.
Don't
Goes
miss it.
to 11 p.m. Full backline provided, full house band.
What other diversified project can we throw out
I
here?
don't know.
Sam can do your headshot.
I can do maybe a work for you.
We'll do a rolling.
Yeah, there we go. Star Wars style.
Long ago in a galaxy
Oh, man.
far, far away.
Columbia, South Carolina.